Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, July 12th, 2018. This is the Hingham Historic Districts Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. First, I'd like to say that Harbor Media is recording this. I believe we're live tonight, so thanks for being here. Second piece of business would be if anyone has any conflicts or would like to recuse themselves from any of the applications this evening, that would be a good time to talk about it.
All set.
All clear? Okay, all clear? Okay. And I guess voting members tonight, since there's 5 of us here, we have a couple voting members that are missing, but if everyone here would like to be a voting member, that'd be great. Okay. All right, and with that, first application is Jim here from 217, right? 317, I'm sorry, 317 Main Street. So Jim would like to install a shed off his driveway. So maybe you want to walk us through what your plans are there.
Mr. Chairman, in your packets, you will see the new location.
Yeah, so
New proposed location for the shed.
So we had, I was unaware of the 5-foot rule under 64 square feet in town, so I simply moved the shed over, which allowed me, I reduced the size of it dramatically, so it's 6 by 10 currently, and then that allowed me, the 5-foot rule allowed me to push it back further, which is great. So now it's behind the driveway, behind the front facade of the home, and way further off to the right-hand side as you're looking at the house from Main Street. So it's just much more of a secondary thing than, what we had originally proposed.
So Jim, you said the size is now?
6 by 10.
Okay. That's okay.
And so just, if anybody has any questions, let me know. The rear of the home's all conservation land, then immediately behind the shed is the septic system, and then, the front of the house is all driveway at this point, kind of taken up with that hardscape. I just put it on footings. Footings? Yep. 4-foot footings, 4-4-foot footings.
Are there any images of the revised size? Is that?
No, you know what? Here are some.
So yeah, I had thrown a couple things out there about when we met this week at the on-site, Andrea and Hans, we just kind of kicked around some ideas. So originally, the image that I had submitted was 2 doors on the front facade, just 2 simple doors with lights in them to match the 9 light that's on the front of the house. And that was it. I mean, and then it would be all red cedar roof, red cedar siding, and so there. Is that it?
That's the original.
That was the original. Okay. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't bring that's the original one. So it would just be a simple gable turned sideways. The 6-foot side would be the gable side, with the 10-foot side just being the front of the shed. And I'm open to putting any kind of door or window assembly you guys want. Whatever appeals to you is fine with me. Whatever kind of door or window, if there doesn't need to be any windows, I'm open.
You know what? Let me just pass some of that
Yes,
around.
sure.
Thanks.
I suppose I'd want at least maybe, if we're going to do a single door, a 3-foot door, just at least in size, just to get things in and out of there. But other than that,
Possible door samples and more than you'd ever want to see right here. Okay? So I don't know if you want to just pass these along. These are shed doors.
So let me just give a little bit of background here, Jim.
Sure.
Andrea and I went out earlier this week just to take a look at the site and see how it would work relative to the main house. And I think some of the initial concerns were that this was going to be placed in front of the house. And, going out there with this new design and new positioning, the shed is actually going to be back, I don't know exactly how many feet, but it looked like 5 or 6 feet from the front facade. So, and given the 10-foot by 6-foot size of the structure, I didn't think it was going to compete with the main house. And it was going to be off to the side, maybe, I'm guessing 25 to 30 feet from the main house. So I really didn't see the shed having an overdone influence for where it was positioned versus the house. The other thing that was my takeaway is that it would probably be best if this would be something very simple without any windows on the front facade, just kind of make it just, maybe the doors would be just grooved or something like that, make it almost like just a very simple shed-like, almost barn-like door to it, and then maybe just having a window on the side facing the house to get a little bit of light in there. And the window would be facing south to southwest, so there would be the maximum amount of light coming in. And then on the side facing the, the neighbor's building on the right, as you're looking at the front of the shed, would just be, just straight shingled, red cedar if you want to do that.
Sure.
And then maybe just some simple white trim, but have the roof, the facade, the 10-foot side, just have that showing, and then the gables on the side like you were mentioning.
That sounds good to me.
So just as simple as possible so it doesn't compete with the house, I thought would work well. You don't want to overdo it, I think, and draw your eye away from the house itself and draw yourself to the structure was my thought process.
Yeah, look, I mean, based on the site conditions, you don't really have many other options, and based on the reduced size and the fact that it's pushed back a little bit, I think it's pretty modest. I think it'd be fine.
Jim, do you have any idea of how tall this shed would be?
I would say I'll make the front or the walls 7 feet high, which would then make the gable, the ridge 10 feet, another 3 feet, 10, 11 feet, something like that. Definitely small. In proportion, if the gable's on the 6-foot side, it'll be in proportion to that.
The siding on the house is,
Clapboards, it's ultimately going to be painted. And we're going to do a red cedar roof. And I'm happy to make I'm happy to make the shed clapboards with a red cedar roof as well, as if that's,
Although Romina,
she's not here though.
yeah, but Jim's wife prefers all shingles.
Yeah, I would say we're indifferent there, but yes, she would prefer red cedar shingles. That's very nice of you to stand up for her, Andrea.
For the shed and not for the whole house.
That's right.
See all the door options? Some have lights, some are very simple, so comfortable. Hand them all to Jim and he can decide.
You guys can choose, truly. I saw it when you sent it, any of those work. Just the barn door look in general.
Here we have the gable facing the street with some of these. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I feel like the gable should be on the other side. It's 10 feet.
the way it's shown here.
Yeah, this is
Yeah. Right, so there's gable, so
gables on the sides.
gable's on the sides.
Yeah. These standard wooden doors look fine from
Okay.
from these drawings. I think just keeping it simple with some black hinges,
Okay.
you know.
Well, yeah, I'll have Romina pick from one of those and just confirm that that's what we'll do, and we'll go with that, if that's all right.
Questions, Justin, Tomas, you all right?
No, I mean, all of these, I think, would be appropriate. It's really more about, sorry,
Did you want to see these, Jess?
about which one you would approve, would choose, and then we would approve it finally, right? But from a location standpoint,
Yeah,
I have no objections to the location and no objections to the
okay.
size.
And the
at all.
size certainly makes it much more easy to agree to.
Right.
Let's, I think what we do is just, we can make a motion and just call out specifically what we're looking for, and then, you know, I think he can build it to spec.
Perfect.
You know, something that's pretty straightforward like this.
Well, I
We
think,
just like-
you know, I think there should be a drawing
Yep, okay.
submitted ultimately, because I think we've asked that of other applicants, and
Sure.
I think we got to make sure.
I'll just
we're doing-
augment the, you know, in something like that, send it to Andrea, and she can forward it along.
All right, anything else? Okay.
It's looking good.
Thank you.
I drove by.
We're doing
the other
motion
day.
there.
Doing a
Some
lot
of
of
the
work.
dimensions, 10-foot, 7-foot walls, 10-foot high ridge line, 10-foot face, cedar, white trim, black hinges. Just name this exhibit or something like that. Call it the exhibit. Location. And it's just off the edge of the cobblestones on the parking lot. On the right-hand side, the far right. So he's got some cobbles here, so it's kind of an apron now.
State. Okay. I'd like to make a motion for a certificate of appropriateness for 317 Main Street for the addition of a standalone 6x10 shed off to the right of the house, approximately 5 feet from the property line, located near existing cobble edge. Materials, all materials to be wood, siding to be either cedar shingles or clapboard, trim to be painted white wood, simple standard wood door to be on gable end, walls to be 7 foot high, ridge to be no taller than 10 feet. Applicant to submit revised drawings for record and exhibit site plan.
And we'll just maybe window, just like a standard Brosco window to match to the house.
2 over 2.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
May I ask that the trim color can be decided upon later? I think we'll have to see what they choose for the house.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Trim color to match house.
Or compatible with.
Compatible, okay. All right. Red cedar, did we get that on roof and?
Well, are you planning to do red cedar or asphalt? I think you were kind of,
I'll do red cedar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd prefer.
and that's what you're doing on the house?
Yes.
Roof to be red cedar?
And shingles to be red cedar too, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, Jim.
Awesome.
Good,
Thank you guys
good to
very
go.
much.
Good to
Good
see
luck.
you.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks. Make sure Jim gets those
Well,
samples, doors.
This was,
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
All right, next up, we have 48 Cottage Street. This is for the construction of a stone wall on the side of the house. Rebecca?
Lisa.
Lisa?
Lisa.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Rebecca's the homeowner, I'm the
Okay.
landscape designer.
Okay,
So,
good to see you.
Nice to see you too, thank you. So, I have pictures in there of photographs of what they originally, they're new owners, they bought, I think, last year. So, this is what it looks like now. And this hill drives them crazy because of the slope, so we just want to continue this wall on the other side to match. And then that way their front yard will be a little flatter too. So when they come off this, there's a little patio up here and that goes along the front of the house. That way it'll be flat, they can walk out into their front yard instead of having the sloping ugly hill. So we'd like to just do the exact same stone wall, the same stones, not a veneer, it's the real stone, on that side.
Questions?
Yes, so in this drawing, the new wall is here.
Correct.
Okay.
I know, I'm sorry, I couldn't enlarge it, I tried.
But that shows it.
Okay.
So you have that it's 124 square foot is the new wall. What's the existing? Is that about the same?
No, the existing is smaller. It's
Oh, okay.
probably about 100 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so I drove by earlier today, looked at it, it makes a lot of sense with the slope. I can imagine when the rain is there, everything washes right into their driveway.
Exactly. And the previous owners, the Hennessy's, who I knew, put the juniper there to help try with the erosion, which typically it does, but it just still keeps washing out. And they do have cobblestone there, which is nice, and it stops it, but they're always cleaning it up. And they have young kids that are riding their bikes, and, you know, we talked about it, and I thought it made a great idea to just continue it.
It's going to be a challenge to match the wall.
No,
No?
I've got fabulous masons, and, yeah, he's already has the stone picked out, and so it'll just look just like the other side.
13 by 7 and the dimensions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did you construct this wall, Lisa?
I did not, no. I believe when the Hennessy's bought the house, and I don't remember how long ago, Jill's, I believe that was there, so it was many years ago. And then the McNamara's, I think they've only been there a year, and contacted me about fixing some of the bushes in the front too, and then mostly the stone wall and that slope.
Any changes with the landscaping?
Yes, so in the,
The shrubs?
just the shrubs out front, they're old yews, and we're gonna just remove those, and I'm gonna do hydrangeas up against the house, and then a boxwood hedge, you know, keep it very classic. And then on the side there that they have existing boxwoods, I'm just gonna push those over, and then they'll be sod to fill in the grass area. And then, again, take away that hill, put more grass there for them. And then in the back, we were just gonna do some evergreens, just to give them a little bit of privacy, because they're kind of wide open to the few houses that are back there.
It seems like a very appropriate proposal.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the wall is pretty, it will look nice.
It will look really nice.
Yeah.
Anything else? Ronnie, you want to make a
Sure.
motion on this?
I'd like to make a motion for a certificate of appropriateness for 48 Cottage Street for the construction of a stone wall to match, on the right-hand side of the property, to match what is existing on the left, stone to be the same stone that exists currently, and additional greenery as laid out in a plan dated May 1st, 2018.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I can start Monday?
Yeah.
That's great.
Great.
Thanks for
Thank you.
coming in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck.
All right, moving right along. I believe the Foleys are here. How you doing? Good to see you. So the Foleys live at 191 North Street. We have some, we have a new application in front of us. I think you, the last application had some changes to it, and I think you've gone back and made some modifications, which we're able to see. So if you want to just walk us through, you know, what you're thinking and some of the changes since we last met, that would be great.
Sure. So when we left the last meeting, we left with the idea of putting the farmer's porch on the side of the house to fix the side that looked a little choppy. I know no one was very fond of it. The picture just brought for reference the existing, this is the part of the house
Yep.
where the farmer's porch is going. And so when we started to add that porch, we were able to then actually pull the house out a little bit over that and gain, it's not a large amount of footage, but it's enough for us to fix one of the problems that we had in the flow of the upstairs. So then it sort of allowed us to change the inside of the house in the way that we were hoping to fix our problems, and also we feel that this looks appropriate, fixes the side of the house. I know that that's farther back from the street, but it was something that the commission didn't really love about the home to begin with. So we think it fixes the problem from the outside, and it solves our problems on the inside without changing the facade of the house, which was the goal in the end. So,
And the view from the street, this is actually more of what you see anyway. So we thought that coming out of the last meeting, it was actually a great idea, and it turned out to be able to solve the problems upstairs.
Okay. All right. Questions from the audience? No? Okay. Let's open up for discussion, questions. Lots?
So the existing, this portion here remains unchanged, is that the idea?
the back part of the house?
Yeah.
Well, this currently just has its sliders all the way, glass sliders all the way
Yeah.
across, so we were going to change the sliders to actual windows instead of, I think,
Do you have this?
I don't know, that's
This is
actually
the
don't.
existing.
I think it's on the second page.
I think you got it.
Picture.
Oh, yeah, we've got the picture here.
Both sides have, here you can see,
They're
those are the
glass.
sliders,
Yep.
which would prefer to not have.
Remember those?
So the thought was to replace on both sides with windows.
But the only part of that that's really visible from the street is this side, the opposite side. You really can't see, but I don't think you'll be able to see this as much anyway once the farmer's porch is pulled out, because now we're getting pretty far back, but it still looks better than the sliders in our opinion at least.
So that's the other side from the street. You can't really.
So you're not really pushing anything forward, you're just extending what's there currently, is that correct?
Yes.
Where you sort of have that funny
The-
jog in?
Yeah, this part
brick
here.
column.
Yeah, exactly.
With the
That
brick
just gets
column.
continued?
We're gonna, yes, so
Part behind
it's
it.
gonna
Yeah,
be more
behind
like
it.
Yeah.
a porch that goes over to here, so it sort of just evens everything out on this side. Instead of having all those choppy pieces, it gives it a cleaner facade.
And then just a clarification, so this portion right here, the upper portion right here is set back?
Yes.
From the- correct?
It's set back from the roof line a little, from the front, yes,
Yeah.
yep. And the roof line of that porch, it's hard to see here, it doesn't go all the way out to the edge of, this is existing, this jut out piece there, this doesn't, it's just hard to see without 3D, but it doesn't come all the way out, so it's recessed a little bit back from this piece of the house.
And the existing window on the front of the house, the top, on the third floor?
Yep,
You would replace that for egress purposes?
yes,
Yeah.
we would really
Yeah,
like
that's
to do that, because right now it's one window with two different sides, and each side is about this wide, so there's just no way to get out of it, so it makes us uncomfortable. If I'm able to, have somebody look at it to figure out whether we can keep that window, and I had somebody give me an idea of maybe perhaps they could look at trying to keep it, but make it so that it goes up and down altogether. That I don't know whether I can do that or not, but I will explore that. That might be difficult, but we just want to make sure that someone can get out of that room,
Yeah.
because our
It's less
kids
about
are
the
in
window,
there,
it's more
and
about getting out.
But this drawing looks like you've got a strategy
Yeah.
according to this
Yeah.
drawing.
Yeah.
One of the review criteria we look at when we look at height and we look at new additions is that we want to make sure that there's a compatibility of the new addition to the original building itself.
Yep.
And one of the things that we look at is that we ask ourselves, is the height of the new addition subservient to that of the existing building? And I guess my question is, in order to fulfill that, it looks like the addition right now is an extension of what you have right now. And I'm wondering if there is a way, in order to meet this criteria, to drop the ridge down a little bit, to show that there is to differentiate the new from the old, and still give you the space in which you need upstairs, even if it's just a small amount. So it looks like there's an addition that was put on. And we can see, yep, this is the original. And then we see, yep, this was what was added on.
I'm a little bit concerned that'll get us below what we would need for headroom. It's pretty tight in our upstairs
It'll be
as it
pretty tight.
is. There's very little space that's actually standing room, given the slope of the roof, so that might just throw it all off. So,
I'm wondering if there's a way to do it, even if it's a foot, or even if it's
yeah, I
something
know we
less.
probably couldn't do a foot, but
What's the height of the ceilings in the main part right now on the third
it's
floor?
on the top floor.
Yeah.
It's like seven
Seven?
something. It's, there's very little space to actually stand upright in any of the rooms. And that's not, obviously, this part of it's a lot lower.
Yeah,
That
when it
part's
slopes
not
down into
even-
what is our closet now, it's much lower.
And so that's not usable, really.
So I think, I'm looking, kind of thinking of Hans's comments, which I agree with. There's a lot of just based on the shape of the roof on that third floor, there's a lot of sort of dead space there anyway. I think if your architect looked closely at cutting a section through there to just drop it a little bit, I think you'd be surprised to see that you're not really going to lose much in that space, because you've already got some of that already taken up by the eave space over here. And I think if you're able to just drop that a little bit, I think you'd be able to get there.
Okay.
And I don't think it has to be a lot. I think it's enough to just break that roof line. And I think there's creative ways that you can deal with the exterior trim. And, you know, I honestly don't think you're going to lose much in that space, because the bath and the major part of the bedroom is already kind of running down the middle where you've got.
So you're saying to break, but if you're talking about dropping, you're talking about dropping up here?
Yep.
So it drops down?
Yep.
Just enough for a visual element?
Just enough to break the planes of the roof to show that there's a difference between the original structure and the proposed addition.
So where would you break it based on?
Yep.
Based on what is existing currently?
Yep.
Yeah, because that
So right.
that
and it would
coincide
break
with,
right along the line here.
That's
So it would
our
line up.
second floor.
This is the
Oh, no,
third
that's the
floor.
third floor, okay, so right,
So it would break right here, and it would lower, so I think you'd be able to get there by just taking a look at. right
sorry, I
along
didn't see that
line.
word.
so you're saying you don't think we'd lose headroom if we did that?
I don't think you're going to lose as much as you think you might, just because it's already within that roof plane, you're already kind of losing some on the side,
On
just
the
by
side.
nature of being in there. So I think if you're lowering it a little bit, just by lowering it, 6 to 12 inches,
Yeah.
I think you'll see that space. I don't think you're going to lose much usability of that third floor.
I mean, I'm not an architect, so this might be a silly question, but if we lower it by 6 to 12 inches, won't the ceiling height in the addition come down by 6 to 12 inches?
It depends on whether that's a flat ceiling in there or if it's a gable. If it's
Okay.
probably a gable ceiling already, the
Okay.
top part is probably already pretty high anyway. And I think it would be worth it to see for the architect to sort of cut a section right through here so that you can actually see what the shape of that space is, and by lowering it 6 inches, whether that's going to really be a deal breaker or not. And I'm not convinced that it would be. And I think it would be a modest change to the interior and improve the exterior to sort of keep in line with what we're trying to do with the guidelines.
Okay.
Do you think you
So-
could do this with the same pitch? So pitch two gables, same pitch, and then just bring it in a little bit by 3 or 4 inches on each side, on the sides?
I think so. I think,
Same pitch?
same pitch.
So you have a little bit of, you have some trim showing, and then
Yeah.
you drop it down, and then,
Yeah, it would change. You'd have to look at the trim in the windows on this side here, because that would drop that. Because if you're going to drop, the pitch is going to be the same here and there.
yeah.
Then this eave line has to drop a little bit.
But you don't want to have a different pitch. I think
No.
that would look, you don't have a flatter pitch on
Right.
on the addition.
Right.
They wouldn't have a different pitch?
I think we're just
I was
saying,
imagining
yeah, so it'd be flatter if you just dropped it a bit, and then
like that.
it would be flatter on the addition, which I don't know if that would be appropriate.
Truthfully, from our end, if we lose any space ceiling height up there, no matter what it is, it's not really going to work. So we've really been trying hard, I think, to preserve the facade of the house. I think that this really improves something that doesn't look great. We bought a house that has some things that could be fixed that weren't really done that well, and we're kind of trying to right some wrongs in that area. It feels a little bit difficult to get there when it's confusing, I would say.
See if Monica can drop it down a little bit and see if you have something that's manageable for yourself in terms of living space up there. See what, we would certainly be curious.
Okay.
And I think the end product for you is something that would be better too.
And it brings it into real compliance.
If you can have the space that you need up there, it meets our criteria, and it's something that we'd be asking for anyways, so.
The roof line drop. Okay, so if it doesn't work, then this plan is out altogether. So if the roof line drop takes away the space we need, then we should go back to square one again? Just,
We're not saying that, but let's explore what Mike's saying and what I mentioned, and see if that's manageable for you. And then let's take it from there.
Yeah, we can decide if it makes sense for us too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's a worthwhile exercise for you. I just,
Are there any other challenges, assuming if that works out, just so we only have to do this once?
from my standpoint, I thought that was the major thing.
Okay.
You're working with what you have there on the first floor. You're making some window adjustments there, which I think is appropriate. Again, you're working with what's already there, so I think this is a good solution. The last time you were in, we tried to provide some guidance on what could work by going up a little bit higher, and it was my view that the commission was getting very close to to that.
by going up a little higher.
On this.
On the back end?
Yeah, on
We had
this.
to lower the roof on the back end, actually.
that's-
So, but you were stepping it down each time is the guidance. I think the last drawings we saw
Right.
were getting pretty close to that. So I thought we were all on the same page. It was pretty close.
Oh, yeah, this
Yeah.
one.
We were losing a lot of headroom
that's
from
right.
that plan.
Yeah.
And when we left here the last time, and the farmer's porch was mentioned as something that the commission would love to see, we went back to do that, and we were able to solve our problems in a different way that also preserved our headroom, and frankly, doesn't look as massive, in my opinion, from the street. So we actually felt like we were coming in here with something that would have been, approved. So it's because, in the end, we understand we have to conform to the standards here, but we're also the homeowners, and it needs to work for us in the home.
Yep.
It needs to be worth putting our money into.
Yep.
And I would say, you may disagree, but I think that what we're doing here actually really improves the way the house looks now. That's part of our goal, too, is to improve the look of the house, which I do think this accomplishes. But, of course, in the end, we will need to have everybody here agree as well. So we are trying our best to do that, and I guess we will continue to do so.
Yeah, thanks. I think it'd be a good exercise. Anything else?
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. I'm good with it. All right, next up, we are, just a tad early, but Hingham Institution for Savings is here with a proposal for 85A, which is the home to the rear of the bank.
Yes.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Bob Goggin, and I'm chairman of the bank. Mike Knowles, our facilities manager, and Patrick is our president. He's here supervising me tonight, so I don't say anything. Just a couple of comments on our proposal. Our request is to be allowed to take down the building at 85A. It has been, we recently purchased it from First Parish, and for a number of years, the building has been deteriorating. the foundation's cracked in the back and looks like it's ready to fall off the foundation in the rear. But our proposal is to take down this 1920s building that, when you look at the records of the Mass Historical, we believe it to be of limited historical significance. There's no write-up on it in terms of any notation in terms of the historical significance. And we think there's a real benefit from removing it and landscaping that space. Some additional green space is made available in the square. And what we have proposed in the write-up is that we landscape it in a similar fashion to the way we have landscaped the hillside. And, you know, that's used frequently by a lot of folks this afternoon. A number of children out having ice cream on the hillside, and I see mothers picnicking out there. Our sole intention is to grass that space in, so we think the green space is a good use of that. And in addition to the additional open space in the square, it would greatly improve the sight lines for both First Parish and Old Ships. First Parish right now is the view of that from all of the back parking lots, both our parking lot and the municipal lot, and Central is blocked by this building. In addition to that, if you go up on Central, this building blocks view, and the building essentially blocks a view of Old Ships that you would have from Central if this building were removed. So I think it serves a number of purposes, and I think it is really within the parameters of the scope of what this committee is here for, to some extent to improving those sight lines of truly significant buildings by the removal of one of limited significance seems to have a lot of benefit to it. So if you folks have questions, would be prior to that, maybe I can give you, I looked this afternoon, I probably could have done a better job from Google, but I looked at some of the sight lines, if I could, the impact of the sight lines. Mike, could you stand on that side? From the municipal parking lot, actually from our parking lot and from the municipal parking lot, I think you can see what I'm talking about in terms of the way it opens up the view of First Parish. And this transaction basically has worked out well for First Parish too, because it's allowed them to do some maintenance on that building that is going to help them in terms of preserving the character of that structure.
Okay. Any questions? I'd like to start.
When was it last occupied? Do you know?
You know, the church has been moving functions out of that building for a number of years now. They've been moving them into the basement of First Parish. They still had a little bit of office in the first floor. The second floor has not been occupied for years. They've had someone in that lower, the first floor level, maybe a couple of hours a week, up until pretty recently, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the condition of the building is not a hazard or a public safety?
Oh, well, the condition of the building is a hazard. Oh, yeah, I have no idea why they were allowed to occupy it, but if you look at the back stairs, those stairs, the posts are off of the footing, off the footings, and if you tried to walk down those steps, it would be
pretty
tough.
steep.
Well, not only steep, but at the bottom, there's no wood on the cement, on those footings. The wood is freestanding, right, Mike?
Right,
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
not
so
walk on those stairs.
You can't walk on those stairs. And if you take a look at the photography at the bulkhead, I mean, the entire bottom of the bulkhead is rotted out. Not the bottom, the sloping doors to the bulkhead, the first 18 inches is gone. Yeah, yep, yep. So, It's in tough shape.
So would this be something that could be considered an attractive nuisance as well?
You could have children going in there trying to climb those stairs, and whether the stairs will not support a person, but they could try to go up the back,
right.
the fire escape, let's call it, and the bulkhead, you know, as I said, is in a
Right.
condition that...
And there's nothing preventing someone from, no wall fence, anything preventing anyone from accessing it? Okay.
And that's been the case for, we just acquired it this past month, but, yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think if I were to look at our criteria for when we think about new construction, I think the element of rhythm, when I look at this property, if I was considering building that, in my assessment, I would look at that as disruptive to the rhythm of the area. I think if I try to imagine the sight lines that would be in place with this building gone, I would find that a more pleasing rhythm if I was going through our criteria for assessment. That's probably where I would stop and say, that's...
Let me ask you this, Justin. What if you went through our demolition criteria? How would you view this? Because I'm looking at this as kind of as a tear down and something that's going to be gone forever.
Right.
And given this commission's primary concern about preservation and restoration, my approach is, all right, this has been there for 100 years. Does it meet our standards for demo? So how would you approach it then?
Well, as I look at it, it does a 1920s building, and when I look at this particular building, it doesn't look like a historic gem to me, but I understand what you're saying. This is something that has been here for a long time, and when you take it away, it's gone forever. But I'm not sure I would view that as a very positive asset of the town. I think it's okay for what it is, but I'm not sure I sense something that we would miss terribly.
I know that, I think, Mr. Ludwig, are you, I don't know if you'd like to comment. We started just a tad early, but, so I'm sorry if you wanted to be here for some of the audience.
I was just here to, out of obviously interest, for those who don't know.
Walk up to the microphone, thank you.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Gary Ludwig. I'm the pastor at First Baptist Church, who just sold the property to Hingham Institution for savings. And I don't know exactly. I've heard just the last part of the conversation, and I will share that while the property has served our church in the last not quite 100 years, because it was a private residence initially, and then after that person left it, the Gilman family purchased it and gave it to the church. So probably somewhere around 70 years or so, it's been the church office and Sunday school classrooms, multi-purpose for the church. And we did go through an extensive evaluation of the property to determine would we want to fix it up and keep it. As I did catch the tail end, yes, the fire escape's in terrible condition, the bulkhead is in worse condition, and we've been very mindful of that. Also, I don't know if it came up in conversation, but we did have a tree fall on it. And while the roofer that did the church roof made it watertight, there's still structural damage that would need to be fixed. So all that to say, we did a pretty comprehensive evaluation to try to see what it would cost to renovate, to bring it up to speed. And it was going to be cost prohibitive for the church. It would ballpark somewhere in the $60,000 range. And the other problem with it, from the church's point of view, the total square footage and how the first floor laid out, it really would not lend itself to easily becoming handicapped with a handicapped restroom, which is what we really needed in order to continue to use it as it had been used in the past. So again, for those reasons, we decided to sell it. And you know, and I came today just to be supportive and interest in the process.
Thanks.
So I don't know if there's anything else I can
No, that's very helpful.
offer. Yeah.
Very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you know, I think with our charge being preservation, I think it would certainly be difficult for me to render a decision without actually seeing the property. You know, clearly the photos show some disrepair, but I think actually seeing the property and understanding, you know, the condition a little more closely, I think is going to be important. If, for instance, this property, I mean, do you have any other plans for this property if, in fact, it...
Green space. That's it. I respect the challenges that Gary has had, but it would be nice not to be looking at that building anymore. I mean, it is in tough shape, and in terms of additional uses, it's really, really hard to see what they would be. And while I'm sure you understand your charge better than I do, sightlines are part of your charge. You know, preserving historic sightlines and accentuating historic sightlines, I think falls within the parameter of what this commission has been established to do. And I think it's a pretty compelling argument that the removal of this structure, which is of limited historic significance. I mean, if you look at the registry, there's no write-up on this building at all. You look at the write-up on First Parish, all ships, obviously, and the removal of this structure would greatly improve the ability of folks and the frequency that folks would be able to view those buildings.
So, just to take the other side of that,
Yep.
that argument, we do have a Form B on the home. It's characterized as a bungalow, arts and crafts, whatever you want to call it.
After that characterization, it says, colon, no style. Now, I don't think that was a value judgment, but I don't think it would have been far off if it was.
So on this Form B, I don't have that. I just have bungalow listed as a style. The other thing I would say in terms of sight lines, you know, this house built in the 1920s is at a, 100-year sight line that's existed. Now, I don't know what this house looked like in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, but it was part of the sight lines from the bank, sight lines from First Parish for an extensive period of time. So part of the landscape is what I would take the other side of that. So I am very much a proponent of open space and green space, but at the same time, this building's been there 100 years. The other thing I'd say is that one of the criteria we look at in terms of demolition, demolition of historic assets in a historic district represent a loss of historic fabric and may adversely impact the streetscape. Demolition of all or a portion of an historic building is generally discouraged unless substantial justification is provided. One of the questions we ask is, has evidence been provided to justify demolition? And I would say that having an engineer's report, something that says that there's some structural issues here that are beyond repair, having some other survey work done or some type of third-party investigation here that this is beyond repair, beyond the scope of what would be required to bring this back up to its state that it was when it was viable and used by the church. I think that would go a long way for this commission. And have reasonable alternatives to demolition been explored. So I don't know if this could be restored and then be a rental property for the bank. I don't know if there are other alternatives for it that could be investigated, but certainly that's something that should be considered. And will the demolition adversely affect adjacent historic buildings or the character-defining nature of the streetscape? So I understand your point here that having this building gone could have a positive change on that view from the back of the bank and from the church and from the parking lot. I get that. But the other side is that, what did this look like, 50 years ago? What did this look like without an escape route, a fire escape, with a bulkhead that was in better shape, with a roof that was repaired, shingles that were, were new? Don't know, but probably better than it does now. So, sure.
Again, I don't want to be intrusive, but to just address some of the issues, and I don't know if this is a factor for the Historic Commission, and I don't know your scope other than what I've just heard. But I will share that because we knew we were going to sell the property, and again, we did an investigation, we did have an engineer come in, and he didn't do a stamped report. He did it more informally as we were anticipating possibly renovating. And he did say it was constructed reflecting the style of its time, and that it was essentially sound. And there's the basement, there's a crack, but he didn't think that was major. But I will share that I've been at the church 31 years now, and I'm very familiar coming in and out of the building. And I do know after the tree hit it, doors that were not tight before became tight. And so I believe that the whole structure was impacted by it. Now, I'm not an engineer, but I'm just reporting that. And the other side is that while it was originally a residence, the story that was passed on from longstanding historic residents when I first came was that it was a paper street intended to be completed to Central Street. And obviously that street was never completed. So it's a one and done on what was originally intended as a street, talking about streetscape. And the other side is to bring it to a fully functional building today. Some of the issues we looked at, it was on a cesspool. So sewer either tying into Main Street or Elm Street, or if there was enough space, septic would be a huge issue. And also, there is no kitchen. There's a half bath. It would take a lot of work to bring that into an apartment-worthy or a rental-worthy property.
Yeah.
It's not just minor, clean it up and fix it up type of thing.
And just to go off of one of the comments that you said earlier, was that you did an evaluation of it, and you thought it was $60,000
Right.
to get this to get this to a position where it would be usable or
Right.
safe, or so. I take that to mean that there's an opportunity here to do something to shore this up, to get it into a position where it's where it's functional and safe.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. And just as a point of reference, we were talking about getting it to that point as an office/meeting rooms, not as a residence.
Yeah.
Okay? Because, again, second floor, half bath, that was it. First floor has no plumbing. No, well, I'm sorry, there's a sink that we use for coffee making. But to that number would go up considerably if it were to be done as a residence.
For me, getting in there and seeing it and walking around goes a long way.
We'd love to.
Having some additional documentation as far as an engineer's report and some survey work would go a long way, I think, for this commission. And again, we're just applying the standards that we have, and I think you knew coming in here that demolition is one of the things that it's just a very high hurdle for this board, and it's something that we make sure that we do all our homework, and it's something we don't take lightly. So it's I hope you can understand that.
We do. We will be happy to have you folks take a look at the interior. We'll be happy to get an engineering report.
So I don't know if you have anything to
No, I
add there.
think you articulated very well.
Mike, anything else to? Yeah. So I mean, we come around on Saturday mornings, and we kind of all gather outside, and I know there's plenty of parking out there, so we can.
Yeah, we'll be happy to set up a schedule, a
come
time,
over
and so forth.
but yeah, I think that would go a long way.
When would you be able to do that?
So, summer schedules, and, our next meeting is mid-August, so sometime before then would work, if that would work for you
So
guys?
we're at, the Saturday is the 14th, so we have a number of weeks. Is there any time or anything that's more convenient for you?
Saturday morning's fine.
Okay.
And we'll secure an engineering report. I think the structure, the integrity of the structure is compromised, significantly compromised. And
If you have a third party that
Yep,
can,
we're gonna-
that can,
yep,
that
we
can
will.
document
Yep.
that, I think that would be very helpful.
we will do that.
And as far as a survey, just what were you looking for there?
I think, from what I understood from talking with, is it Mr. Trevor? The person who's going to do the demolition. He talked about a significant amount of asbestos, and I don't know what the wiring is like in there, the plumbing, I mean, those kinds of, just a discussion about that would be also very helpful.
Okay. Most of the asbestos has already been removed. Did not remove the asbestos from the windows because it's in the glazing in the windows, and the way to remove it is take the sash out and take it away. So we left the windows in there before, so that, we didn't take it out before this hearing.
Good.
And the other thing we didn't talk about is, and again, this is around the structural integrity of the building, but, is there somewhere else that this building could go? And what is what are the costs and what's the feasibility of that? And a lot of that is going to depend upon, how much damage there is in there and what the integrity is.
Right.
But, that's something also to consider, too. So,
Yeah, if the structural integrity is compromised, I imagine moving it someplace else doesn't improve that, but, yeah, we'll see what we can get on that.
And just the other thing I'd point out is that there's, as you know, there's a lot of craftsmen in this town that can do wonders, so, even with structural issues, so.
I won't be able to improve the sight lines of First Parish and Old Ships, no matter how good a craftsman they are.
I got you. I understand your argument.
Yep. You can't make a silk purse, but that's okay.
I know.
Okay, I guess we should probably, we should probably wait until you get the structural engineer's report to have the site visit. Would you agree that's?
Sure, let's do that first, yeah.
I think so. So, Mike, maybe you can give me a call when you feel that that's complete.
Okay.
That would be great.
I will.
And then I'll set it up from there.
Very good.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for listening, too.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. All right. We're a little bit ahead, Andrea. Do you want to, should we talk about the, the documents that are in the,
Oh, that would be a great idea.
you want to do that? So Andrea sent out by email some changes to the worksheet. I think everybody had a chance to take a look at that. I know I sent in some changes, and along with that was an application for demolition, request for demolition,
Yeah, you all have one, right?
which is in your yellow
folders.
folder.
That looks like this. And then the worksheet, based on our conversation with town council on the 21st of June, he said he doesn't really see why we need to have two worksheets, that they could all be combined in one, which makes sense. So as I went through, I tried to make sure that all of these criteria would apply, whether it's infill construction. And if you feel differently about something, then let me know and I'll make the change. But the other thing he asked for was that we should have a box for zoning, if you recall. And because the Historic Districts Commission does have the ability to increase setbacks, so that if...
Meaning be more restrictive.
Correct, correct. If for whatever reason we feel that that might improve the siting of a particular building. We have seldom done that, but nevertheless, we do have that as a possibility. So we included that, and also the demolition criteria. And that,
These printouts that we got today are
Yes.
the same ones you emailed?
yes, they
I
are.
could
And
print mine
just
well.
had a hard copy,
Yep.
yeah. So sometimes the 11 by 17 doesn't, it's hard to print out unless you've got that paper. Comes
Yep.
out kind of squat.
So I've got 4 copies in my folder, is there?
Yeah,
are they all
yeah,
the
yeah,
same?
well, that's just in case.
I just want to make sure they weren't different.
No, they're not
versions.
different, they're
Okay.
all the same.
Got it.
And actually, I should date them. So, and Ronnie provided some additional help on the demolition application, which I appreciated. So, and Hans had some ads for me for the focus for evaluation. Notice that the box to the right of focus for evaluation has findings, and if you have some specific citations from any of the reference materials, you can stick them in there. And then the last one is conditions, so that if your findings indicate that something needs to be conditioned in some way, that we have a record of that. So,
And that's all the specifics about materials and all the things that we do ordinarily
yes,
go into that
ordinarily,
condition
yep,
section.
I would say so. Mr. Chairman, I think, as you said, we have to
Yep.
vote on this application for demolition.
So the worksheet would not be a voting
No,
matter. It's
it's
something
just-
that's, something that we use as we review and evaluate each application we get. And again, if there are changes going forward, things that you think of, it's you know, a bit of a work in progress, but it certainly incorporates a lot of the elements and things we've been talking about to review the applications so far. But in terms of demolitions going forward, I think this is a good idea to have an application that is specifically filled out to help the applicant meet the requirements and make sure that they have a complete application in front of us. And this will be a little bit different from a application for work that we see, which is non-applicability.
And what do we mean by non-contributing?
When an historic district is formed, there are contributing properties and non-contributing properties, because it's a contiguous series of buildings that make up an historic district. Sometimes in the midst of 19th century houses, you may find a 1960s house. And we do have districts where that is the case. And so that would be considered a
That would be the sort of thing that would be called non-contributing.
non-contributing, yes, exactly. And generally, it's a style or an age thing, a contemporary residence in historic districts surrounded by, other architectural styles that are more compatible would probably also be considered non-contributing. Unless, of course, it's a Frank Lloyd Wright, in which case...
Right.
So, there's a number of different possibilities here for a demolition, when an application might be filed, emergency demolition. This is when something is not safe, something that is not secure, that it's the benefit of the town, it has to be done. We haven't really seen one of those, although, it could come up. Demolition of a non-contributing building or addition, this is something that is being argued here. I guess this is the category that would fit in for Hingham Institution for Savings with 85A. So they're trying to consider this is either non-contributing, okay, or demolition of inappropriate addition or non-significant portion of a building, or the demolition is due to economic hardship. So, and then there's some questions that we can ask, or that is asked of the applicant in terms of meeting these requirements.
Mr. Chairman, I think most frequently we see, in our cases, demolition for a non-significant portion of the building, a later addition, a new addition replacing something that's not original to the house. So that's probably the bulk of our of the instances that we see for demolition.
Right. Any comments?
And would we be talking about modifying the application form to try and come aligned with demolition? It would be a separate form? Well,
Funny enough, it would be for a certificate of appropriateness if the definition or the demolition is, the commission considers it appropriate based on all the information that we have, then a certificate of appropriateness would issue. This second sheet, the justification, it needs to be completed by the applicant.
The only comment I have is just a grammatical thing on 8.
Oh, thank you.
Is the historic structure or site is capable.
Okay, thank you.
There's an extra word there.
Yep. No, I probably put it in when I made your addition.
I think it's really helpful that we outlined the economic hardship a little bit and gave some meat to that discussion. I think that's very helpful.
Okay, so you find this adequate?
I do. I think that we did have a discussion about whether or not we would want any inquiry into the wherewithal of an applicant who was applying for hardship. And I think we decided that what we had done was sufficient, but I wonder...
I was looking at criteria for other towns. For example, I looked at Cambridge, I looked at, well, just a number of other ones, and some of them actually did have that. They wanted proof of the inability to financially support any repairs.
I thought about it since, and I think that, what would you be asking for? Tax forms and, whatever that may be. It might be easier to simply have an affidavit that somebody would sign, under the pains and penalties of perjury or with their signature, that they are able to. Because at least there would be some level of them attesting to their inability without us getting into a balance sheet situation of evaluating it. And then if we found unlikely circumstance that someone then went out and purchased $1 million property afterwards, we have something there.
Would that be another form?
Yeah. and
Okay,
I think
that we could attach to this?
Right, and just have it be separate, and I
Okay.
could do some language for you if you like.
That would be helpful.
And
Okay.
it sounds like, and I think I would tend to agree that you're advising against doing the requesting of tax returns,
Yeah.
requesting of balance sheets, and then presumably having someone qualified to look at those and assess yes or no.
Right.
This is- right.
Right. I think that's an intrusiveness and we would want someone qualified, and then we'd have to be getting into what are all the other expenses and...
And are they qualified?
Right, right. But I think it's easier to just, rather than someone just stating it, to actually put some language that they're signing under the pains and penalties of perjury and, attesting to that.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Which gives a little bit of
I mean, it
additional...
asks them to focus their mind on what they're saying and attest to it.
So I'll draft an
Thank you.
affidavit.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, you want to hold on a vote until we get that last sheet, or?
Ronnie, what do you think? Do you think this is something that's, that we should wait on?
I think that you could go forward with what's here, and I would just be amending an application form. So it would be more form, and this is really more of a process.
Okay.
So I think we could do that, and then just look at the form.
Right, and presumably date the form and give it a version of some kind.
Okay. Sounds good. I like that. Any other comments or changes? Okay. I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this application for demolition to be filled out by applicants pursuing any demolitions going forward.
Second that?
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed? Okay. Good. Thanks,
Thank
Andrea.
you.
All right. How are you? Good, how are you? Good to see you. All right, last but not least, 632 Main Street for the removal of an existing sun porch and with replacing a one-story addition in the rear of the house. John Terriaki's here. Hi. How you doing? Marnie? Hi. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Is that sturdy enough? Is that gonna work?
It's not bad.
We had, at Mario's, we had some really good ones, and they all disappeared. So as long as you don't blow on it or anything. And you'll need to speak into the microphone.
Should we begin?
Yeah, please.
Okay, great. I'm here with Marnie Owens, the homeowner for 632 Main Street. And I'll just briefly go through our proposal. I have a little introductory board here with some house photographs and also kind of a bird's eye view of the property, which is, I think, relevant because it just shows how the original house sits in the front, and it telescopes backward with multiple additions over time, and what we're doing is really back here where the smallest gray roof is shown. We are essentially replacing that sunroom piece and making a couple of modifications on this facade right here, but we're not really touching the original front portion of the house, which is from 1818. And as you see in the side view, it illustrates how, just like any typical historic Hingham house, it's been expanded backward over time. And it gets less and less historically appropriate. And we think that this third piece here is from mid-century, maybe 50s or 60s. And then there's a sunroom addition in the back, which is the piece that we're taking out. And that looks like it's from the 1980s or so. We don't have hard numbers, but here's the back view of that piece. Down here, it has a kind of an awkward asymmetrical roof. questionable construction. In fact, there are a lot of structural issues back here with floors dipping, and ironically, the 1818 house is perfectly solid. But, that's usually how it works. Just go through some drawings to briefly illustrate kind of existing and proposed side by side. I thought it could be useful to look at them. So on the left column are the existing floor plans, and right are the proposed. I highlighted some of the areas that we're modifying. So on the left side, that Main Street is on the left, and then the house, again, tapers as it goes backward. So the sunroom piece back here, we're proposing to take that out and replace it with an approximately 20 by 20 and a half family room, which will have a cathedral ceiling. And it will open up to a new kitchen that we will create inside this area. There's an existing side entry over here. We are moving it and proposing a small covered portico in front of it, tucked into the corner. We are leaving this bay window as is, other than just interior modifications, and adding a double window on this facade next to the right of that door. Other than that, everything is really part of this new piece, apart from maybe a door replacement back here, but we're not really touching anything here or anything in the front portion of the house. And second floor, minor window replacement over here. In fact, we can even leave the existing window there. This is just pretty minor. The bay window stays, and then you see the roof of the additions below. And I'll just jump quickly to the elevations, which again show side by side existing and proposed in matching lines. So you can see that side profile from the driveway of the sunroom being replaced with our proposed family room, with basically two double hung window groupings flanking a picture window in the middle. And that would have an 8-pitch roof. This is the back view of it. And it would essentially replace what's there. It's about 2 feet taller, ridge height-wise. This is about 14 feet to the ridge. This is about 16. But it's still clearly less than what's in front of it. And then quick comparison of the entries. There's this composition here right now with, there are shutters on this window, and there are kind of half shutters on these, and kind of a pedimented entry. But again, it's not really original. It's, I think, an attempt to replicate some historic features. So we're proposing to, as part of our floor plan, basically move the entry to the corner and put a portico in front of that, and then put a double hung window composition over here. And then basically we're not touching the bay window. And on the other side of the house, this shows the kind of the left side as you're looking at it from the street of the addition, and we're not really making any changes up to that point on that side. And that's the side that gets really tight. I'll go back to the aerial view real quick. That side is definitely where the property line squeezes down, and there's a lot of vegetation, so you definitely can't really see any portion of this addition on this side, and you will catch a glimpse of it from Main Street, but as you can see, it's going to be an oblique angle. It's really not that visible. And then the portico we're adding is right in this corner, so that's also not going to be that visible from Main Street.
And actually, from the left side, there's a fence there, so you can't even really see.
Oh, that's right, there's a fence.
You can't, but from the right side, you obviously can see it. So.
Yeah. And then this is where the portico will be tucked into, right here. There's a third chimney here. However, this is not an original chimney. The original chimneys are in the front. I think this was an attempt to replicate the original chimney. So we are taking this down, and it doesn't function right now. But I did want to mention that as part of this, that chimney would come down along with the sunroom.
Will you have to put a new foundation in where the sunroom is, or does the sunroom have a foundation?
We're going to put a new foundation. I think it's just sitting on a slab right now, and it's not stable.
It looks like it was a patio that someone maybe put something on. It's, yeah.
Yeah. And I did want to make one correction in that the type 3 window is supposed to be a true divided light, even though the schedule says simulated divided light. So we would make that correction because it's in technically the existing portion, and it would be replacing mid-century wood windows. So, but the new construction windows will be simulated divided light with wood exterior, Marvin Ultimate, or similar quality.
John, the only window changes on the existing house are what? Just to the right of the portico?
The double window here, and then potentially this window here, although it really could stay if needed, but we are moving it. So we can move the existing window, but we were thinking we may as well get the same double window module here and insert it here. So it's these 3 windows that are being modified.
John, you gonna will there be 2 windows on top as well?
On what?
I'm sorry, right next to the portico, to the right of the portico,
Yes.
you've got the double windows there. Will there be a double window on top or just the single?
Just a single,
Okay.
about same size, aligned
Thank you.
with the left side of the double.
Do you have any expanded drawings of the portico?
Like a blow-up version? We can provide one. We don't have them right now, but we can definitely provide a more detailed.
The architects or your...
Well,
You
actually,
see
you're
it?
leading into the one of the questions I was going to have. It seems a little ornate, just the
portico?
details of it. I mean, I think the fact that there's a portico there, I don't take issue with it. It just seems a little ornate when everything else in the house seems to be a little more simple in terms of its level of detail. Have you considered kind of making that a little more simple?
I think we can definitely simplify it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, it is more of a Federalist,
Yeah.
kind of stripped down massing here, so we could provide a blow-up drawing of that, maybe a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch with the proposed simplified detail. But if you think the geometry is okay, it's more of the detail than the...
And there's one there, kind of, right? I mean, it's just a little over.
More of a facade treatment, but yeah. It's kind of like a, yeah. I mean, it does have simple lines, but that's also fairly ornate, but we can definitely simplify this further.
Since we're talking about simplifying and ornate, how do you feel about maybe changing the window in the middle in the sunroom? That big picture to just have 5 simple windows in a row?
I think that would work.
I think you had that originally.
I think we did.
You did.
I can't remember why we changed it, but
I'm sure I had something to do with it.
yeah, we can
That would
definitely
be fine.
make that 5.
It would just be simplifying the design.
Yeah. And it would still function the same.
Right. Still have the same amount of lights and so on.
John, what do you have for ideas for just that portico? What would you do differently than what you have here?
We actually started out with a hipped roof
Okay.
and just a corner column. And then we were debating whether that was highlighting the entry enough. And then we thought maybe the gable could fit in there. So this is an attempt to fit the gable into that corner.
How about just a little shed without a gable? You know? Just have just one face.
Yeah, how do you?
What do you think about that?
I don't know that.
Basically just a shed roof without the A-frame facing you, but you would just see the roof coming down.
So just kind of a little mini porch.
And it would have a column? Maybe.
I think the column would still be functionally necessary, just to hold up that corner of it. But,
So almost going back to what we had before?
yeah, the one we had before, I think, was more of a hip, so if I drew a profile of it, oops. If this is the corner, we had something like this, with the sloping on the front and the side.
Okay.
And I think what Hans is saying is maybe do one that just slopes all the way to the corner, so on the right side, you would see a triangle. And looking at the front, you would just see the roof coming down. So
Oh,
it's
I
kind of a
see.
further-
Yep, I understand, yep, okay.
Further simplification of it. But
Okay.
Is that side door sort of your primary?
It's the main
It's
door.
the main door you go in and out every day.
Right,
Yeah.
right, mainly just because we were too lazy to walk all the way down the
Right.
driveway and in,
I would go in and out of that door.
especially when you have groceries, but,
You could almost make it a little bit longer than if you did it like that, right?
elongate it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe? I don't know.
we can definitely come up with something that would make everybody happy.
Yeah, as long as you're open to simplifying it further, I think we can.
Totally happy to do something, that's fine.
The features in the front door, I'm just trying to look, it's square, so, I don't know, something maybe picking up the front door, might also work. So, square column, potentially something that picks up a little bit on how the front is designed. It just kind of tips its hat to the front door maybe a little bit. Well, that's possible.
Yeah, I think square columns will be working equally fine.
Create some shelter from weather as you get in the door.
And that's the only round feature I see in the whole, in the house. So I'm just keeping with the rest of the home. And even on the existing south side elevation, I think it's got, okay, you're changing that, so, okay. What do you think, Mike?
One other question I had, I know you mentioned that chimney coming down and that it's not part of the original house, but any idea when that was built? And did you give any thought to keeping it within the new design? I know you've got a kitchen there and sort of some open connection there, but was there a way to incorporate that?
I don't think it's not functioning. I think it would need some work to even keep it, I think.
Yeah, I think the second floor is not a problem. It's really the first floor that it would become more of an obstacle over here, and it would definitely not be functional. You would have to close it up. It would just have to be this dead rectangular area. You can't really have a mantle, but that's the new kitchen. But also, from a massing perspective, since you have the original house with that strong symmetry in the front with the double original chimney, I don't know if this lone chimney that's popping up in the back, whether you consider that significant or essential to this whole composition. There's definitely things that are happening that are not coordinated as this house has been expanding towards the back, and I guess our argument is taking this down along with this doesn't really impede or hurt the original historic portion of the house. Can we create a faux chimney? That's always kind of not ideal.
Yeah, I think it's either
Kind of functional
you
issues.
keep it or, or it goes. I wouldn't recreate it.
I guess we never looked at this, but we could consider creating a vertical chimney at the end of the family room instead of a gas. Right now we have a gas fireplace. We could build a chimney enclosure at the end of that piece.
And then would it go all the way up to the same height that this?
Not to the same height, it would go probably 3 feet or so above the
Right,
ridge.
so you probably wouldn't be able to see it then from the road anyway.
Not really. And
Yeah.
that again would be mostly a faux element because it's a gas fireplace.
What do you think the age of the chimney is? When do you think the addition was put on the back? Not the sun porch, but that last...
We think that this piece is from the 50s or 60s.
Mhm.
This looks like it's from the 80s, maybe.
Yep.
But we can try to look into the building permit archives and see if there's any record.
Yeah.
The chimney's off-center when you look straight on, right? The newest one. Yeah.
Yes, it is off-center, and there's some unusual roof forms here with hips and sheds and gables all kind of in, some membrane roofs kind of intermixed. There's really no evidence of it being an intentional original chimney, also being so far away from the historic addition, which is here. I'm not sure when this piece was added, but that definitely looks a lot more historic than this piece.
So Mike was getting into some of our demolition criteria here, and maybe you can just kind of think about this and ask if the demolition is detrimental to the project. Has evidence been provided to justify demolition? Well, this is something that's maybe the 50s or 60s, so it's not original to the house. Alternatives to demolition have been explored. I guess you can create a faux chimney, but it's not really serving any purpose right now. Will the demolition adversely affect adjacent historic buildings or the character-defining nature of the streetscape? We can talk about that. I don't think this chimney is impactful to the streetscape or the other homes. The question is it a necessary ingredient to this house? It certainly wasn't original, wasn't put on originally as the house grew over time, so.
Yeah, if it was one of the two original ones, then it'd be a difference.
Right, that would be a different story.
Different discussion, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a test. Would that count as a test? Because how clearly the other two chimneys we would, I think, have strong feelings about.
Let's talk about the demolition of the rear of the house. Has evidence provided to justify demolition of that, I think is the primary, question we face here, is that, given that this is a 1980s sunroom that was put on a slab, you think we've got a justification here to take that down?
Yeah, I don't think it has any historic value at all.
Okay. All right, so, and we don't think that we want to explore other options here for that sun porch, so, okay.
I think maybe that is the sort of thing that would count as a non-contributing element to the historic nature of this structure.
Great, okay. So I think we're good on the demo of that. Let's talk about the design of the addition. I mean, this is a minimal view. Is the scale of the new construction consistent with the width and height proportions and floor-to-floor proportions when compared to the adjacent structures and to the site? Does the new addition overpower the existing historic building? Sounds like with some of our comments and questions here, we're pretty comfortable with the size. I mean, the footprint is very similar. It's maybe a little bit longer, but massing, is it compatible with the adjacent historic buildings and the other historic buildings in the streetscape in terms of height, design, materials, roof forms, foundation, and footprint? And is the new addition over 50% larger in square feet than the existing historic building? I think it's a no to that last part.
Right.
Compatible construction here, does this match up with the original and the additions that were put on?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. Height, is the height of new construction compatible with adjacent historic buildings and other historic buildings in the streetscape?
Yes.
Is the height of the new addition subservient?
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Proportion, is there a harmonious relation to each part facade of the building to the whole?
I think so.
A rhythm, does new construction reflect the rhythm of the surrounding buildings in a manner that contributes to the special character of the district?
It does.
Design, is it compatible with the building? I think we talked a little bit about that. Yep. How about reversibility? Do we think if this were to come down in the future, could we still have a clean break with the additions?
Yes.
And is this where we might note a condition, for example, Mike's comments about the portico, the side door? I don't know. I'm
Yep.
trying to use our form.
Yeah, so the design, I think this is, I think you're right, Justin, this is a design question, and what I'm thinking is that John could come back with just something on the portico, a drawing, and we could review that at that point in time. I'm just wondering if we can get him going on the rest of the addition of the project.
But I think the comment that I've heard so far is the design line item of the criteria.
Yep. Materials, similar materials here? Any questions about that? He's using true divided light windows for the existing and the SDLs for the new part.
Yep.
We're okay with that. Wood trim. Clapboards correct to match
Right.
existing house. Okay.
Good clappers to match.
Windows and doors are compatible with the surrounding buildings and contribute to the special character of the historic district with respect to material, subdivision, proportion, pattern, and detail. If we covered all of that.
Yes.
But the roof? Good with the roof?
Yep.
Match existing? Character. Will the new construction affect the overall character of the historic streetscape?
Not negatively.
So, yep, improvement, agreed. Zoning, is this consistent with the setback of other buildings in the streetscape? And is, if not, does the siting of the new construction disrupt the rhythm of the streetscape? So, no. And we're working with the existing footprint pretty much.
Right.
And we talked about demolition, so I think this project meets most of our, except just the design of the portico, maybe.
One window.
Yes.
One window.
The portico will come back, I'll go back to the drawing board and that, and come back with a larger drawing
Okay.
showing the proposed division of that area.
Do we want to get John going on the rest of this house? I think that's appropriate at this point. What about the chimney, Mike? I know it's kind of a...
Yeah, I think based on the fact that it's part of an older addition, I mean, a more modern addition, seemingly built in the 50s or 60s, I don't think it's a loss to the property.
Okay. All right, Tomas, would you like to make a motion on this one? And we'll leave out the, everything except the portico for next time.
So I would like to make a motion for a certificate of appropriateness for 632 Main Street for the demolition of an existing sunroom and chimney to the back of the house, and a new addition of sunroom with one second. According to plans dated June 27th, and with a change in the window in the sunroom to match the additional 4, and with a revised drawings of a new side entry, either portico or, yeah. Windows in the existing portion is to be true divided, and in the new, it, according to schedule, simulated divided windows. Did I miss anything?
Materials. Is the window is on north side, just to be clear. Is that the north elevation?
Yes, there are no changes to the existing on that side.
Okay, that's where Tomas was talking about.
No, I'm talking about on the side, south side elevation.
Is it the south side where the
On the
window?
south side elevation?
Taking the large window and making it,
Yeah,
it's on the south.
it's on the south
Thank
side, yep. Materials to be,
To match.
to match existing,
Roof to match.
and roof to match.
Trim to
existing,
match.
And trim to match.
Color to match. Existing. Applicant to come back with a revised drawing of the portico at a later date. Anything else? Good.
Second.
Second. From Ronnie, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good work.
Lovely.
It's a beautiful building,
It is.
like that.
Yeah. Love your kitchen. Love your kitchen.
All right.
Fun in it.
I think we're set.
Anything else?
If only.
Keep clicking.
Good luck.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you.
Everyone. All right, with that, I'd like to adjourn the Historic Districts Commission meeting for July 12th, 2018. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thank you.